And I am live. I'm back. It's Gordon Causey back after a 2-week hiatus, forced hiatus. And Cam's back as well. And a little news on Candy. She was sick during that 2-week hiatus. She hurt her paw and then got sick. And I'm happy to say she is more than fully recovered now and fully expecting her treat. I see Danny is already here. Thank you for your emails, Danny, during that break. I was just watching the one you sent me today about what happened in Ottawa during the Remembrance Day ceremonies at a particular school where they played an inappropriate song. You want to have a rally. Apparently, I don't know much about the song that was played, except that it's a pro-Palestinian, anti-Israel song. And that's a separate issue. And people are divided on it. And it has nothing to do with Remembrance Day. Remembrance Day is the day when we commemorate our fallen soldiers, those who have died to preserve freedom, liberty, and all the values we cherish in this wonderful country, Canada. Although how wonderful it is with Trudeau at the helm, that's another matter. Shake a ball, lay down, feel whole, listen to her. And she has her treat. As always, the live chat is on. I'm going to switch it to live chat from top chat so I don't miss any of the messages. Betty Zoom is here. So I've got Betty and Danny, and Danny's thanking me for my service. No worries. It's true though. When you join the military, there's something called unlimited liability. It's one of the first things they teach you, along with core values of duty, loyalty, integrity, and courage, which I remember the acronym being DLIC. And unlimited liability means that you're signing a blank check, and that is up to and including your life. If you're in a battlefield situation and you're ordered to go, you have to go. Otherwise, dereliction of duty, court-martial, all manner of things. But man, oh man, what a crappy time to get my YouTube account suspended for 2 weeks. All for talking. I'm going to be very careful going forward, at least until I have no wiggle room, as it were. My next strike, and my YouTube channel disappears, and I might have to resurrect as Joe Retail. And I'll say that again, Joe Retail. But being that as it may, I'm not going to be talking about. And thank you for thanking me, Danny and Betty. But the number one guiding principle on the now destroyed Georgia Guidestones is a topic that seems to be something of the third rail. If you don't know what the number one guiding principle was on the old Georgia Guidestones, easy, look it up. It's on Wikipedia, it's everywhere. And you can look and you can read up on the 10 guiding principles of the old Georgia Guidestones, which basically is a blueprint for eugenics and pagan nature worship. And Danny has put the word right there that I'm not going to say, just because I think it might trigger an algorithm. Because as soon as this video goes live, immediately they transcribe it, and there's closed captioning available. And so the words that I say are rendered into text. And man, oh man, oh man, what an Orwellian world we live in, where thoughts are in a liberal democracy, freedom of expression should be sacrosanct. And I would go so far as to say that if you don't have freedom of speech, freedom of expression, then you do not have a liberal democracy. You're on the slippery slope toward fascism. Danny's writing, welcome to 1984. And I think we've been living in this world for a long time. a very long time, longer than my life. I mean, and both ends of the political spectrum play at it. It seems to me that fascism is a very attractive ideology. It's just a question of whether the fascists are promoting your beliefs or not your beliefs. If they're promoting your beliefs, then it's not fascism. But when they start promoting the beliefs that others hold that you disagree with, you know, it strikes me that everyone has, and myself included, has uh, a fascist inkling to one, and it's just a matter of degrees. And I find I have to check myself regularly. Speaking of Remembrance Day, some individuals have taken the poppy, and there was a white version of the poppy for those who are anti-war. Then there was a rainbow rendition of the poppy for the alphabet soup community. And I have to check myself, because while that is something I would never wear, that's part of freedom of expression too. And if someone A chooses not to wear a poppy, or B chooses to wear a poppy with which I don't agree, the wars that have been fought to maintain a person's right to express themselves, and the litmus test for determining whether you live in a free and democratic society is whether or not the idea, it's most important when the ideas are not popular. And so when I don't agree with someone, that's when I'm most vociferous, and I check myself and remind myself to be outspoken and say, even though I disagree with this person, I'm not going to cancel them. You know, I call myself often the poster child or poster old man for cancel culture. Let me read up on what's being said. Betty Zoom has written, "It's caught up with me. Change is hard to accept. New world. I don't know." Now, I'm a firm believer in that old axiom that the best disinfectant is sunlight. And Danny writes, "Unfortunately, free speech includes hate speech. My freedom to speak does not end when you are offended." Absolutely, because offense is subjective. What offends me doesn't offend another person. And you cannot legislate that no one be offended, because then we can never have a meaningful conversation in our society, because people will be offended. You might not even be able to talk about the weather. People could talk about the weather offensive. I'll relate an experience I had at work just following, and this was why it was so bad to be censored for 2 weeks during the US election. I couldn't do a video with my reaction to the US election. But in the wake of the election, I was talking to a coworker, just normal voice. We weren't being loud. It was just the two of us talking. His coworker. And as I've said many times, since May of 2022, I've worked in a large retail establishment. And we were talking about the US election. I was saying my thoughts, and my colleague was saying their thoughts. And if you're new to this channel, I have something of what I'll call a MAGA bent. I don't consider myself, ultra MAGA, ultra make America great again. I'm not a big time Trumper, but in the context of an election between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, the bar is so low that Candy the Wonder Pup gets over that bar. So Trump certainly did. So I was happy to see that he won, given those two choices. And we were just having this conversation, this colleague of mine and I, and a woman went walking by, a customer, and she admonished us for talking about the election. She then identified herself as part of and I think she used the word queer community, as being part of the queer community, and how, talk like this hurt her, and that, and I looked at her and I said, it's too soon. And she goes, "Well, just, don't talk loud enough for anyone else to hear." I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to whisper now if I want to share my thoughts. Unreal. And I will share my thoughts on the election, but I'm going to keep reading. What Danny wrote, full-blooded red poppy for me as well. The simple one. I get the little felt one with the little push pin. I was thinking one of these years, and maybe next year, I'll get the more, the dressed up version, which I think has more of a permanent pin in behind it, like those lapel pins you see of the Canadian flag and various other things, so that it doesn't come out. You don't lose them. Although the easy way to do it is just to bend the little push pin. And Danny is also saying that Don Cherry was right. Don Cherry got canceled from Coach's Corner, Hockey Night in Canada, for saying, "You people, you love to come here. You love our milk and honey. Is it too much to ask for you to spend a toonie and put on a poppy? I don't see him anywhere." And he got canceled for that, for the "you people." And it's not just, it's not just it's not just immigrants to Canada who have forsworn the poppy. There's lots of Canadians who are second, third, fourth, fifth generation Canadians who also don't wear the poppy. And canceling Don Cherry was horrible. He had at least another couple years left in him. He just recently was asked to comment. Joe Warmington of Sun TV was at his house, I guess, and he still looks reasonable. I think he's got to be 90 something now, and he doesn't look like he could be doing Coach's Corner anymore. He doesn't look up to it physically, but the mind is still sharp, but he's a little slower of speech. I don't think he would have the same cachet that he had when he was doing it. But I think he could have gone on for at least another year, 2, maybe 3. So let me catch up. Freeland wore a strange one, just wondering the meaning. I didn't see the one that Freeland... I do not seek out news articles on Chrystia Freeland. Goodness, no, I can't stand her. Trudeau and Freeland are at the same level for me, and they're so far in the basement. It's unbelievable. Danny is saying maple syrup MAGA here. So like me, I mean, there's my Canadian version of the MAGA hat. Make Trudeau a drama teacher again. I've been a little more bold. I've worn this out in public a few times. See what happens. Nothing has. No one's made any comment on it one way or the other. Reading, Danny is writing, Chrystia Freeland, Canada's own human bobblehead, Twitchy, I think is the best name that's been applied to her. And Danny's telling me that Don Cherry turned 90 on February 5th. Wow. I'm not sure exactly what the comments you guys are commenting on. I see there are more than just Danny and Betty here. The live chat is for everyone. I don't mind Betty and Danny filling it up, but if anyone else wants to chime in, go ahead. But my thoughts on the U.S. election. One gentleman who watches my station from the Netherlands, he goes by the name Sojourner Didymus or Thomas, and he put a comment up on one of my older videos saying that I got it wrong, that my prediction was wrong. And I don't really feel like I made a definitive prediction. I know that I stated my affinity, my desire. You give me a choice between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. I'll take Donald Trump every day of the week and twice on Sunday. It's a no-brainer in my mind. But at the same time, I know that I expected something similar to what happened in 2020 when Joe Biden won the White House with more votes than any president has received in U.S. history. The most, he got something like 82 million votes. And in all the battleground states in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, all these key battleground states, what happened was everyone went to bed seeing Trump with leads in the hundreds of thousands of votes in each of the so-called battleground states. And then we woke up in the morning and found out that mail-in ballots had flooded in overnight while we were sleeping, and that Michigan flipped from Trump to Biden, Pennsylvania flipped from Trump to Biden, North Carolina flipped from Trump to Biden. And it was like, what? And I know what the mainstream media says. The mainstream media says that any allegations of voter fraud or irregularities are baseless and unfounded, and that the election was 100% legitimate. I still doubt it. I don't think Joe Biden got 81 million, 82 million votes in 2020. But with that being said, I kind of was pretty much expecting the same thing to happen again, and it didn't. This time, Donald Trump, he got a few more. His vote went up a little. From 2016 to 2020 went up, and it went up a little bit this time, but the Democratic vote tanked by, I think, 11 plus million votes. And you think with population, the U.S. population has been increasing, both through natural growth and through immigration. You would think there'd be more votes cast every year, but there's a big drop off between 2016 and 2020. So anyway, let me read up on what's being said. Whale oil is here. Just got the link, and we know what whale oil does. You'll play it at double speed. And yeah, it's the same crew, Betty, Whale, Danny. We'll see if anyone else shows up. Kamala did not do better than Biden anywhere. No, she tanked everywhere. The votes among Latinos went down from Biden to Kamala. The votes among Black men went down. And I have taken over the last while to consuming a lot of content from Black conservative men. A Righteous Perspective, this guy named D. Wise, I think that's his name. Actually, if you check out A Righteous Perspective and his live election night coverage, I actually managed to get on live with him, and we had a conversation, gave him a bit of a perspective coming from the north of the 49th parallel. He's down in Baltimore area, so he's in a suburb of DC. Very articulate gentleman, ex-Navy, ex-serviceman himself. So had a we talked for about 15-20 minutes on his channel because I couldn't talk on mine. And oh man, what gets me is what's happened in the wake since Trump has been reelected. There seems to be heads exploding among the MAGA camp over some of his appointments, most notably Florida Senator Marco Rubio, who I believe has now been confirmed and is going to be the Secretary of State of the United States. And that's widely considered to be, you've got the president, the vice president, and then a lot of people put the Secretary of State number 3. You'll recall that Obama gave that position to Hillary Clinton. And Marco Rubio is massively pro-Israel, massively. And it strikes me that a large part of the MAGA camp is like upset over the fact that Donald Trump would appoint an ardently pro-Israeli Secretary of State. And I have to ask the question, what planet are you living on? Trump has been the most stridently pro-Israel president since Harry S. Truman. Truman was the president of the U.S. in 1948 when Israel made its unilateral Declaration of Independence in 1948. They weren't really established as a country yet, but they made a unilateral declaration, and within, I think it was 11 or 12 minutes, Harry S. Truman recognized Israel as a nation. even though, again, it's like when the United States declared their independence from Great Britain. They declared it, but it took them years to win it. Israel, it took them, much smaller country, but it took them 8, 9 months to secure their boundaries and establish themselves as a nation. But you got to remember, Trump is also the one who recognized Israel's capital as Jerusalem, and then he moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. He also recognized Israeli autonomy over the Golan Heights, which they had captured from the Syrians in the 1967 Six-Day War, when Israel had to go to war again. That war was with Egypt and Jordan and with Syria, and they captured territory from all of them. And I believe Rubio is also big on asserting Israeli control over Judea, Samaria, what some call the West Bank, which, it's this double standard that Israel is forced to abide by. The Arab world has one set of rules, and Israel has a higher set of rules, and you can't survive in that type of situation in the Middle East, living to one standard while those surrounding you don't. Unfortunately, lowest common denominator. You got to get down in the mud. Reading on. Betty writes, I never saw when she entered the U.S. House, and seems all she's lying mouth. What's she hiding? Talking about? Are you talking about free? Oh, you got to be talking about Kamala, which it's going to be interesting to see what happens with her. She's out of politics as of, I think it's January 20th is the day when the official transition goes, when Trump will retake the oath of office. They'll inaugurate him again, but we'll see what happens. It's going to be an interesting few months there. Now, I had put out a video back at the end of July. I did one on July 22nd, one on July 25th. And I also posted this to my Facebook timeline. And at that time, I was making something of a prediction saying that I expected Kamala Harris to assume the presidency sometime in mid-October. My rationale for thinking that was that it would make it an easy way to rig the election, because then she would be running as the incumbent president if they Amendment 25'd Biden, or if he became sick or ill, or God forbid, if he passed away, then Kamala becomes the president of the U.S. Then she's running as the incumbent. She is de facto the first woman and the first woman of color to ascend to the Oval Office. And I thought, I thought they could do polling, and they could say, ask Americans, how proud of you that America now has its first woman and first woman of color as a president of the U.S. How proud are you? And they could say, are you very proud, proud, somewhat proud, not proud? And then they could splash over the headlines, Washington Post, New York Times, USA Today, saying 78% of Americans are proud that America now has its first woman and woman of color as president of the United States. Well, so that didn't happen, failed prediction. However, there was a guy, a senior member of the Democratic National Committee, the DNC, was on, I think it was CNN, and he was punting the idea that Joe Biden should resign the presidency, hand it to Kamala Harris. And he was saying that the reason this should be done is so that the next woman of color who comes along doesn't have the added weight of being the first, because it will have already been done. And he was calling on Biden to do that within the next 30 days. And there are commentators here on YouTube and other places speculating that this is a so-called trial balloon being floated out to see how it lands. Is there a hue and cry? Can we maybe get away with this? We will see what happens. Between now and January 20th is a very, very long time. And we all know, there have already been 2 reported attempts on Donald Trump's life, although some think that at least that first attempt, the one in Butler, Pennsylvania, where he fell down to the ground, and his ear, some say it was a squib, something they use in pro wrestling to simulate blood flow, and some don't buy it. I do. I do think there was an attempt. It's unbelievable that I can't even remember the name of the kid who supposedly was a lone gunman, like John Wilkes Booth. Despite all those rapid shots you heard, it's forgotten news. But so much can happen between now and January 20th. Goodness knows. Goodness knows what could happen. I can You can spider web off in a number of different directions. Probably, Occam's razor. The most likely thing that'll happen is the most mundane. Donald Trump will take the oath of office and will reassume his place in the Oval Office on January 20th. Let's read up. Whale Oil writes, Dr. Shiva, P candidate, claims President T stole his bottom-up issue points, knowing nobody knows who Dr. Shiva is. I don't know who Dr. Shiva is. So there you go. Danny's asking if the Democrats will certify the election. Who knows? With Biden calling, it's interesting. I talk often on this channel about the art of war and deception, and the political arena is certainly a battlefield. It's a war. And Biden is signaling that peaceful transition, orderly transition of power, blah, blah, blah. And you have to wonder, is it, are there alternative plans? Are there ulterior motives lurking underneath the surface below we want a peaceful transition? Time will tell. I think Trump in his border czar comes across as a real pit bull. And I think that will scare some people. But he's also nominated. He's put up the first woman will be chief of staff at the White House. His chief of staff is a woman, and that's the first time a president has done that with a woman. Marco Rubio is Latino. His Secretary of State is a Latin American. So that should take the wind out of the sails of all the the bogus claims about Trump being a racist. And Vivek Ramaswamy is going to be teaming up with Elon Musk, and they're going to be in charge of driving efficiencies in the U.S. bureaucracy. And goodness knows, we've all seen the 60-minute reports and others from years ago where a paper clip costs $15 and a nut and a bolt costs $5,000 and everything else. So that's going to be interesting to see. But there's still this pervasive, people take it as a matter of course, well, Donald Trump is a racist. Donald Trump is a racist. It's been said so many times that it has seeped into people's subconscious, and they just accept it as matter of fact without even questioning it. Donald Trump repeatedly throughout his presidency and before, when he was running, repudiated the KKK, disavowed the KKK and all white supremacy and everything like that. David Duke had endorsed him, and Trump said he didn't want the endorsement, and he repudiated it, rebuked it, blah, 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 but they never gave up on it. They just ignored all that. And it reminded me of a scripture that I wanted to share, because I know Danny loves the Bible as much as I do. I'm not going to say more. I'm not going to say less. I'm not going to say I like it more, that he likes it more. We both love the Bible. And it's from Revelation chapter 7, verse 9. So I'll let you catch up, Danny, because I know you like to have your Bible with you. Let me read up, though, on what's being said. Yeah, so Whale Oil, I don't know who Dr. Shiva, and I don't know what P candidate is. I don't know what the P stands for. Betty is asking, do you think that Joe thinks does Does Kamala Harris think Joe Biden stabbed him in the back? Uh, I I don't know if I think a better question would be, does Joe Biden's wife think? Because Joe, I don't think is all that with it. I think it depends on the level of his medication at any particular point in time. But it wasn't so much Kamala that stabbed him in the back, it was the entire political Democratic National Committee. It was the DNC hierarchy party establishment that did it. They took him down and had him removed, and they imposed a candidate, which is the same thing they did in 2016. They imposed Hillary Clinton because back then what they did is they had super delegates, and any senior ranking member or elected person with the Democratic Party was automatically given delegate status, and there were I forget the number, but it was a significant number. It was like it represented nearly 50% of the delegate total, which made it impossible to defeat Hillary Clinton because she already had like 40% of the delegates in the bag. And so Bernie Sanders would win primary after primary after primary. And you always heard the reporting, but unfortunately, but because of the super delegates, Bernie Sanders, it's an insurmountable lead. So the DNC imposed Hillary Clinton. And this time they didn't even go through the sham of a phony primary election process. They just circumvented it totally and handed it to her. So anyway. Oh, and there's the name that Danny has put it forward, the name of the kid who's the supposed lone shooter, the Lee Harvey Oswald, Thomas Matthew Crooks. Yeah, Betty's asking. Yeah, I saw the smile that Joe gave when he shook hands with Trump, and I also saw his wife's Jill Biden is the name of Joe Biden's wife, I think, Jill. And I saw the bright red dress she wore on voting day. And in the U.S., red is the Republican color. Red states, blue states. Canada, we're flipped. Blue is conservative, red is liberal. But Joe Biden can say, I'm the only one who's beaten Trump in an election. Hillary lost. Kamala lost. I don't think, my own opinion, and YouTube and everyone can say that it's baseless with no credibility to it whatsoever. But I don't think that Joe Biden won that election. But ultimately, he did win the election, right, fairly or unfairly. He won, so he can say he's the only one. Kamala didn't beat him, Hillary didn't beat him, but Joe did. So he's got, it gives him something of a legacy in a way. Danny has got himself ready with Revelation 7:9, says that he opened it exactly on the right page at random. What the heck? No kidding. WTF in reference to that, come on. But I know, like myself, Danny and I both, they're still, having been ex-military, there's sometimes it's tough to keep the filter in place. Sometimes the filter drops and things slip out. And Danny's writing about Jill wearing red. Betty writes, Trump had a red tie today. I forgot the meaning was so long. I looked into him. Yeah, and he often wears a gold colored tie. I think that's something of the branding color for Trump Enterprises, for his companies, the Trump Towers and everything. I think gold, that yellowish golden color, is more of a personal color. And no kidding, Betty writes that he went through a lot to get there. No kidding. But to what degree is it all theater? You have to wonder. I mean, just watch Chris Rock and Will Smith at the Oscars. Was that real? or was it faked? Will Smith is an Academy Award winning actor. You don't think you could fake something like that? Chris Rock is no stranger to performing, being in movies, maybe not an Academy Award winner, but he had the easier role, just playing himself. So I tend to think that thing was scripted because the joke was over Will Smith's wife having that condition, alopecia, which causes no hair anywhere, no eyebrows, no hair in the head. And Chris Rock made some lame G.I. Jane joke, and Will Smith initially laughed at it, and then he is like, to my mind, it's like a switch. Oh yeah, that's my cue to get mad. And he went up and he slapped Chris Rock, and then everyone's talking about alopecia at the Oscars, which were brought to you by Pfizer. And Pfizer has a drug in late stage development going up for FDA approval right at that time for alopecia, the condition that caused the whole. And it struck me as too convenient. Everything about that was too convenient. And whale oil is filling me in. P equals presidential. Dr. Shiva Ayundure, MIT, PhD, inventor of email, scientist and engineer, candidate for U.S. president, is committed to health, education, and innovation. Okay. And going on. Danny writes, if it were real, that Oscar thing, if it had been real, Chris would have knocked him out and thinks it was a setup. So we're like-minded on that. But I'm getting back now to scripture. I got my well-worn 50-plus-year-old Bible that was given to me when I was in grade. It was 1974. I was 8. September of 74. Yeah. Is that when it was given to me? September 1974. So I was entering grade 2 when I got this Bible. So I was 50 years old, over 50 years old now when I was given it. And the church we attended in New Jersey. And I was talking about how this racism label has been embedded into Donald Trump and his supporters. And it strikes me when I read the Bible. I'm right now, if you're curious, I'm in First Samuel, and I'm just coming up to the part. I think I'm coming up now to David and Goliath. Saul has been named. Samuel has enthroned Saul as the king, and but God is opposed to him now, and is going to appoint a new king, and it's going to be King David. And I've gotten to the part where David has become a courtier of sorts to King Saul and plays the lute or the lyre to calm King Saul's troubled mind, but I'm digressing. But it strikes me in reading the Bible how little there is about race. There's Moabites, there's Amalekites, there's Hittites, there's Jebusites, there's all these ites, Gibeonites, Israelites, but very little is said of complexion, about race. And I take that to mean that Scripture informs me it's not important. If race mattered, then it would be in here. And driving this point home is chapter 7, verse 9 of the book of Revelation. And so I'm going to start right there. John is writing, after this I looked, and behold, a great multitude, which no man could number, from every nation, from all tribes and peoples and tongues, standing before the throne and before the Lamb, clothed in white robes, with palm branches in their hands, and crying out with a loud voice, salvation belongs to our God who sits upon the throne and to the Lamb. Verse 11, and all the angels stood around the throne and around the elders and the four living creatures, and they fell on their faces before the throne and worshiped God, saying, Amen. Blessing and glory and wisdom and thanksgiving and honor and power and might be to our God forever and ever. Amen. Verse 13, then one of the elders addressed me, saying, who are these clothed in white robes, and whence have they come? And you remember what I read at the start, that there were people from every nation, all tribes and peoples and tongues, standing before the throne, before the Lamb, clothed in white robes. So now John is being asked, who are these clothed in white robes, and whence have they come? And John said, Sir, you know. And the elder said to John, Sir, these are they who have come out of the great tribulation. They have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb. Because no matter what the pigmentation of your skin is, no matter how much melanin is in there, we're all stained by sin. And the white robe is representative of us having been washed clean, whether our skin tone happens to be brown, black, or whatever shade it happens to be. We all are made clean. White is symbolic of clean, and goodness knows my hands are very dirty, irrespective of the melanin content. I'm far from an albino. And so I always like to inject scripture into this. And I'm hoping and praying that in the wake of the election, that if nothing else, that the United States and Canada as well, my native Canada, that we get back on a path that acknowledges a creator God, and that acknowledges objective reality, acknowledges that we are the creation, we are not the creators, and we cannot continually try to bend and warp and distort the fabric of God's reality without consequences. And we've seen it in droves, what has happened. And we've got to get back to the bedrock foundation. And the bedrock foundation of Western civilization is in this book. And I know there are those who love to mock the Bible, to make themselves out to be smarter than the Bible, and it's not a hard game to play. It's not a hard game to play. Hollywood does it all the time. They play to the lowest common denominator, and they show that show West Wing with what's his name? Oh, I can't remember the name of the actor, but who cares? Playing the president, and someone's quoting the Bible to him, and then he goes on about a bunch of laws from a bunch of Mosaic laws from Deuteronomy and Leviticus about mixing fabrics and things like that, and and trying to paint the Bible as being ridiculous. And it's easy to take things out of context and twist and warp them. If you haven't read the whole book, you're not going to understand that God chose a covenant people, the Israelites, the descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and they were to be a nation set apart. And that would mean set apart culturally, linguistically, in every facet of life, so that people would look and see this is the people who God, by a mighty hand, delivered from bondage in Egypt. He has his hand upon them, and they are distinct, they are different, they are unique. How can you tell an Israelite? Well, notice that they don't mix fabrics. That's one way we can tell. And notice that they don't eat an animal with its blood in it. And they don't eat, they delineate between clean and unclean. They are separate. And they were to be the beacon. And they failed repeatedly. Repeatedly, they failed, because the Israelites are every bit as broken and fallen and as prone to human failings as any other people. But that doesn't divorce the fact that. That doesn't negate the fact that God's hand is upon them. Read the book of Hosea, the prophet Hosea, who is told to take for his wife a prostitute, representative of the Lord's marriage to the nation people of Israel, the Israelites. Just as Hosea was told to marry a harlot, a whore, so too God has married himself to a people who are as fallen and broken as everyone. Anyway, just reading up on what's being said. Oh, Hank Halliday from down in Texas would love to hear. Now, you're from a decidedly red state, and I haven't seen you for a while, but then I haven't been on in 2 weeks because community standards, and they, this is the YouTube community. And so you're only allowed to say what we allow you to say. And if you have opinions that differ from what YouTube says, we will take away your right to talk for 2 weeks. And if you do it again, Mr. Causey, we are going to throw all your content down the memory hole, and you will not be able to talk on this platform anymore. Welcome to YouTube. So Hank's being welcomed all around. I love what Danny writes. I does it all the time. Jesus is forever in the crown. Danny's saying that Trump wants to bring the Bible back. I have a misgiving on Trump. I'm happy that he won. But the fly in the ointment for me is Elon Musk. I like, remember, Elon Musk is, Donald Trump is broken and fallen. Everyone is broken and fallen. No one is perfect. Obviously, Kamala Harris falls in that. We, as Christians, we should pray for our enemies. We should pray for those we don't like, probably even more than for those that we do like. And Elon Musk, I have my misgivings about him. Neuralink, where they put a chip in the brain, and Elon Musk is an unelected, and he seems to be the one individual to whom Donald Trump is very deferential. Oh, nobody's smarter than me. No one knows more about the military than me. No one knows more about this than that. That Trump is very humble, and Donald Trump are contradictory terms. Trump is not humble in the least. He's always the biggest, the best, the brightest, the this, that. Which, in terms of political rhetoric, fair enough. But the one guy he seems willing to defer to on pretty much everything is Elon Musk. And that concerns me because Elon Musk is unelected. He's not. I'm assuming he has American citizenship, but as far as I know, I think he was born in South Africa to Canadian parents. He went to school at Queen's University for a time. Later, I think he transferred to Stanford. I don't know a lot about Elon Musk, just a bit. So he's something of a citizen of the world, and he worries me. He worries me more than anyone in Trump's circle, more than Rubio, more than this new border czar, more than Vivek Ramaswamy or anyone else. Musk worries me. Betty Zoom says, prayer was in schools, gone for a long time. I don't know why. Every day, right all the way through high school, we said the Lord's Prayer every day. And, just that simple acknowledgement, our Father who art in heaven, acknowledging God's existence every day in school. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed, holy is your name. Holy, pure, good, unblemished. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. We are to strive to make this broken, fallen world as close to heaven as we can. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. We all sin and we want forgiveness for our sins. Well, we have to be willing to extend that forgiveness to others as well. It's called grace. And God gave the ultimate gift of grace by sending us his son, who paid the worst possible, the most horrific price imaginable because of our broken and fallen condition. Danny writes, we used to say Our Father and sang the national anthem every morning at school when I was growing up. Yeah, me as well, right up until high school. And both in the U.S. and in Canada, even when I was in Glen Rock, New Jersey, which had a large Jewish population. Not a majority, but we got off Yom Kippur and we got off Rosh Hashanah. The high holidays were days off on the school calendar. Back then, of course, though, there weren't like 10 PE days or PD days, professional development days, whatever they call them. Whale Oil is asking if I used the 2 weeks sabbatical. I've been doing the Trump voice. That's one great thing. I can now, if I can get a blonde, one of these with blonde hair spilling out, shave the goatee and the mustache, maybe I could become a Trump impersonator. Although I don't think I look enough like him, but I could put on a dark suit and a goldish colored tie and maybe do parties. Who knows? But, assuming nothing happens between now and January 20th, the man is 78 years of age. It'll be interesting to see, if he is able to play out the full 4 years. Once, people do suffer mental decline as they get into their 80s. Not always, but it's not uncommon either. So we'll see what happens. Danny's writing that he too thinks Elon may be problematic. I mean, we're going to have to wait and see. Betty Zoom writes, if the people didn't crave for technology, then we would be okay. We tend to, get enamored very quickly with technology, with handheld devices, with phones and stuff. And we love the apps and everything now. And I think now a lot of people recognize that, holy cow, I'm carrying around a GPS device that can track me, and I've got this Siri and Alexa on it, and every word that I say is being picked up. I think we've all been in this situation where we've had a conversation, gone onto our computer, and then all of a sudden we see what we were talking about being foisted on us through advertising or whatever, because it's all out there. There's that joke where the husband says to the wife, I think they're tracking us. I think the government is listening to us, everything we say. And the husband then laughed, and then the wife laughed, and then the toaster laughed. And I think people have woken up to this fact that the surveillance state is upon us, but they're so addicted to their cell phones now they could never give it up. Well, I need this app. I need this. What if I go to a restaurant? I can't look at a menu. They don't have menus anymore. I need the QR code. Since I've ditched the cell phone, I've found myself joyfully disconnected, but not entirely. Look, I'm on a laptop and I'm putting it all out there anyway. But I'm not. It's freeing knowing that I don't have a cell phone, that I'm not beholden to this piece of technology. But people now, I think most have become so integrated with their cell phone that they could not fathom giving it up ever for any reason. So Betty is saying that Elon's mother came from Saskatchewan, which is where she's from originally, and that Danny is saying Elon has American citizenship. I assumed as much. Hank says, I believe, here's something interesting. He believes the Dems are playing possum. There's an expression you don't hear very much anymore. And are in a room somewhere planning something. If you've never heard the term playing possum, a possum, when threatened, will pretend to be dead. And it's not an expression you hear very much anymore. So they're playing dead, and that's what I was talking about earlier with the, this whole art of war and deception. When you're strong, appear weak. When you're weak, you want to appear strong. And right now the Dems are, because the DNC is saying, okay, we're going to let it. Is that really what they're going to do? Or are we in for a surprise? Goodness knows. We will find out. Danny thinks they will keep trying to eliminate Trump. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting few months. January seems like a lifetime away. It's on the other side of Christmas. So, Whale Oil is writing that it bothers him that Elon believes rocket engines work in a vacuum of space. Okay. When I've talked, I saw Trump talking about how the rocket came down and it was the most incredible thing. And then, and I called Elon. I called him. I said, was that you? And, he just see, and I've watched that video coverage of it. And there's an old saying back before mainstream media, but when it was print journalism primarily, that was the main form of news. And it said, during wartime, believe nothing that you hear, don't believe any gossip, and believe only half of what you read. Now, I don't even think you have to be circumspect about anything you see, because videos can be so easily faked now. CGI, artificial intelligence, robotics, all this stuff out there, that unless I see it live in person, and even then, I'll have to wonder, am I looking at a hologram? The ability, remember David Copperfield, I think he made the Statue of Liberty disappear. Can you trust your own eyes? And that's where I say get back into, get into or back into this book, because we are living in very deceptive times. And Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And lies and deception are what are going to lead us, and I think will lead many, to death. And I'm not just talking death on this temporal plane, but I'm talking about what the Bible refers to as the second death, your eternal everlasting soul is going to be cut off from the giver of life. And is it going to feel like a lake of fire? I tend to view that passage as being somewhat metaphorical, in the sense that to be cut off from God, to be cut off from the ultimate truth, the ultimate goodness, the ultimate author of all that is righteous and holy and perfect, and to be cut off from that would be such torment that how do you put it into words? It would be like swimming in a lake of fire. Danny writes that he keeps his phone sometimes at home when he's out, so that they don't know what he's doing or saying. I would just ditch the thing altogether. I think we'd be in a much better place if people just took their cell phones, their handheld devices, and but I'm not naive enough to think that that's even possible. I think so. Only a very small percent of the population now can live without a cell phone, and most of them are Amish. Betty Zoom's writing, haha, we're going to Mars. And Danny's writing what I was thinking about, CGI, computer-generated images, rocket landing. So much technology. Whale Oil is writing, on today's UFO congressional session, they need Elon's expertise to procure the pending invasion likelihood. Albert Pike's letter. Albert Pike, famous Freemason. And Danny, the famous quote from one of Paul's letters, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Some translations say the heavens. I tend to say dimensions. We know through theoretical physics now that we have 5 dimensions. There are 4 dimensions that we can perceive: height, width, depth. Those are the 3 that we can perceive tactually and visually. The 4th dimension of time, we can conceptualize it mentally. And then theoretical physics contends that there are perhaps a limitless number of dimensions beyond that. High places, dimensions, heavens, realms. There are things that are out there that we cannot see, like radio waves, but we know they're real. Radio waves are real, even though we cannot see them. Well, there are dimensions that are beyond our capacity. I've talked about that before, the pineal gland and how it's been atrophied, although I don't think it's dead. Anyway, and then Betty writes, "Oh, my grandson just going out. Think they married. It's bad." All right, well, enjoy, and I hope it's not bad, Betty. And I'm going to tune out now. So we'll see y'all maybe tomorrow. Hopefully I didn't say anything untoward on this video. My goodness. Horrible, horrible the fact that, it's amazing. This is why I love the comments. Danny writing, "Time is an illusion." There's another thing that you can find YouTube videos on that go on for hours. Is Einstein's theory of relativity. Anyway, may the Lord bless and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you, and may the Lord grant you peace. We'll talk to y'all later. Hopefully nothing happens. I'll see y'all in a night or two. Thanks again. Thank you all for showing up and for chiming in and for filling the live chat. We'll see you in another night or two. Ending stream. Good night all. God bless.